Kofi Ampah Bolasie ewa homa so. Kofi, good morning.
Good morning, Ohene.
You are about the who are dominant as well.
Now Prince or
Tia.
Papa.
They say
The team na.
O say on be show bia offer kasa say 4 goals nkwa 4 goals nkwa na eba. O ha ye hwe wo mo. Keni be ka bia won yo. Kofi am referee made nkomo. You tend to agree with the position of the ESCO. First of all, engine to say ESCO no to me so audience amra no what they no. If say there's no law and start to say maybe I'm ready no ESCO to me eteki that position as Congress. Emra emayedi so. What do you make of the position of the ESCO to say in terms of how you bo a team bako they replace Ashgold in the Ghana Premier League?
I think if I heard you right now, you were saying it was a landmark case, and I tend to agree with that position. My issue has been with the commentary that has been going on.
Okay.
First of all, we have to accept, and now you've rightly stated that the ESCO has powers in such areas. There is no law. Now, say, you see, the argument becomes very simple and straightforward. When you accept, or anybody accepts, say, there is no law governing it. And they say, what to do. Then you would realize that no club, as I said yesterday, no club has a claim to Ashgold Sports as of right. What I mean by as of right is, I said, I don't know if you can.
Enya dia ewo wo se chinchina chin. Eya wo dia.
Yes, that's the point. Enya wo dia. So what can be done is, we have to make arguments. Of course, suggest not arguments per se, even suggestions. Because me Jamia, I would have thought a different way from how ESCO here, And I know everybody in the studio also has different, opinions on senior. I was saying how our push have been in place. Now, if you go to Premier League regulations, for example, if you look at the Human Living Wonders a year or more, later on by a year. If you look at the Premier League regulation, the regulation says that the last 3 clubs,
with the least number of points shall be relegated.
Yes. So the question I asked, I was saying relegation for as of right, I say, are those clubs are they the last 3 clubs on the league table?
Yes, they are.
If yes, the regulations basically relegated. That's what the regulation says. And the word in the grammar, the wording is automatically. Once I over the last 3, automatically you be relegated. What it means in the sense, as you said, it's a grey area. So the ESCO may, that is the best decision for them. Then they may decide that, okay, this is what we have to do. Maybe I am my last person, and I am not to go, and I am a win go, and I am a seeing go. But once there's no law governing it, then the discretion is left with the ESCO.
With the ESCO, yeah.
Now, yes, exactly. So if you want to prevent discretion, because usually things that are discretionary, IANA is difficult to control, even though it must be reasonable. But to what extent do you say that, well, that discretion, your mind is in you, and our mind is in you? So because of that, as a football community, Congress or whoever it is, they have to step in and regulate this thing. Other than that, anything else is just suggested.
Of course.
People mention Cassiopoly. Now, that argument is nice and fine. Yes. Sometimes you learn from other jurisdictions. But then my point is, okay, Sanka, Serie A for, if they had taken this part as for the final, would we have recommended it? That's the question.
Kofi, I know Krano, there's a little flaw. And this situation, FN say, whatever position you take, there's a flaw in that position. For instance, Cassiopoly, Juventus were relegated to Serie B. Yeah. And it was the next level of Italian football. Ashgold ECHO the 3rd tier. What you say? It's just straightforward, sir.
You cannot possibly bring a Division 2 club.
Of course. And now, ESCO, the other summer fan, the floor I want to say, maybe as soon as say Division 1 regulations, no. Your boy we are or see automatically the winners of the various zones, no, and they qualify. One can say zone 1, second four playoff. What it means is that some clubs 2 options to qualify, 2 opportunities to qualify, and so you flock a crowd home. Drops there also propose, you know. Fly, I want to say, even if the same season, and you determine the case of Ashgold, the FA can decide say based on sporting merits, why we are relegation.
And that was the first point I mean.
Based on sporting merits,
yes.
You're paying about for number place Ashgold. Yes. Because relegation is clearly spelled out in the regulations. The beauty of it is that whichever position you take, there's some difficulties in it. And you look at the lesser evil.
In this the lesser evil, no, depending on why angle now, because the German won the Super League of the Premier League club.
Yeah.
They say if the decisions had come earlier, and I've seen the write up of Omoloya.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, really respectfully, in fact, all documents I've seen, Obia knew how we could team and say this is what should be done.
I didn't Obia go to the end there.
Yeah, go to the end there. And I say, even if they don't go, they are making suggestions.
But yeah.
As you said, no, if there's no law on it, then there's a discretion left to 12. Say, ESCO, I'm here 12.
We're 11.
I'm here 11. Okay. So when this decision was going to be made, the decision looks like it favors the Division 1 clubs.
Yeah.
But we don't have more Premier League clubs on the ESCO on that level. And as I said, they didn't care about what was going to happen.
By the working of the ESCO, what we do what?
If there's no law there, I said not being rich money.
Of course, yeah.
So who had more power on the ESCO? That's with the Premier League side. But the question is, did they care?
No, they did not.
Into Nipana exercising, there's nothing you can do. You can copiously, cite examples elsewhere. But even in law, proper law courts, there are some examples or there are some precedents which are not binding.
For instance, in the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court because the fresh is not binding on. They are alone to themselves, so they can take a decision today and change their minds tomorrow.
And yes, the Supreme Court Nankasa can make its own decision, offer a decision, and then the next time offer another decision. So this point even leads me to the Fire Rangers issue now for citing. You see, in that case, I think the ESCO or whoever decided say they should be relegated to other clubs. But Omuka is unique because they were part of the league. The points were deducted, some of them were demoted as part of that league. But Ashgold, or the 2 seasons ago, so if anything, the argument should affect the season on boy, but the way that we threw the case, Ashgold records in that league no more, and their records in the just ended season is intact,
solid.
Goals, say points, everything is intact. They have just been demoted to the second division, and the punishment has to take effect from next year, which means that I no go BBI intact. So how then does anybody or the bottom 3 in both seasons, i.e. Dwarfs and the Wonders, how do they lay claim to anything? So the bottom line of all this discussion is that you can make a suggestion. I've heard a lot of people say and I'm court there. Over court. Imran Banks, as we have had this discussion, and it's been how many days? 2 days. Nobody is expressly able to tell us it. And now we say when I was or the Ashgold response. So it's a big lacuna must be filled by the executive committee, which they have done. Now going forward, what should be the way forward? I mean, which position should they take?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is where the discussion should be, because they have to legislate.
And I think that Kofi, for that, they should leave it to Congress. That's where all the family members will come together and then agree on one process. But Kofi, the appeals committee made a very interesting comment in the ruling of the Ashgold internalized case.
Yes.
That no team should benefit. But I think that they were going beyond their original jurisdiction. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think this issue came, but in this case, I would disagree with you because I'm trying to look at the reasoning
behind it.
Okay, so I'm thinking that like I said, every record of Ashgold in this year's league, is still intact. So based on that, it is only proper that the no team or no relegated team in this year's league to benefit from it. Because Ashgold's points are intact. Their goals that they scored, goals that they conceded, and their position on the league is also intact. So if they make that, make it that express statement now, it becomes law. I mean, okay, we can disagree. I mean, sometimes the courts
and that's why I disagree with you, but it is fine.
Yes, you can disagree. But the ESCO could not have gone against it. So I appeal committee say no relegated team to benefit, or it does not ignore to the benefits of any relegated team. The ESCO could not have gone against that limitation unless, say, they go and legislate as Congress. The family members of your football go and sit at Congress and legislate. Otherwise, what the appeals committee said is what they have to go by. Okay. And the argument that Omo could be on Omo jurisdiction or not will be there. But if you don't overturn or they don't change that decision by enacting a law, then that precedent will hold. That precedent now appeals committee assets. It will hold future occurrences if there are no laws that are enacted in the regulations. So what the football people should be discussing is to find a way to and find a way of filling this spot. Maybe in the next 10, 15 years. Maybe it may happen next season. So they should make provision for it. Other than that, a lot of the arguments, will be emotional, depending on how your drops near. You may forcefully make your arguments, but some of it will be emotional. When you're a team living one is near, you make emotional arguments. If you are neutral, I mean, you can get the point. Say all the suggestions are flaws. Basically, that is where I stand. Maybe any kind of suggestion I'll be making there, and I think you've also pointed out the flaws, right? In all the amount for the amount, there will be some flaws. So no decision will be perfect because you will have to replace Ashgold. You have to replace Ashgold because you cannot play a 60-man league.
Okay.
And you also know that the ESCO could have also taken a decision not to replace Ashgold, but for sporting reasons, because who's the 18, okay, over 17, and you cannot possibly play a league like that with an odd number. But assuming, assuming there were 2 demoted clubs.
Okay, but you 16 club league.
They could have played a 16-man league.
Yeah, that is true. That is very true.
That is also another option that could have happened. But I'm not sure they would have explored it because of the odd number situation. But it is not by force. So that's the whole point. To underscore that point. And yet by force, you also be very pleasing.
Okay, Kofi, yɛfɛsi ne yɛmfa wo nua ɛyɛ chief ademu so na ɔnso mfa ne deɛ mmerɛ ɛwɔ dwumadie so. Kofi Ampah wodi ne Kofi de Ampah okay, Kofi Ampah we dey with us ma fa Bolasie amanaka Kofi Ampah we dey yɛfa Bolasie ne ntu baby say enche na te say wodi manim ne na kokota my lord my name is Bolasie Council Bolasie o there be okay Council ana me that's pa.
Okay.
All right.
Like and subscribe and click on the notification. Happy FM, Nimdie, Happy FM, and Nijenkwa.